You make the payment. You do the responsible thing. You exhale. Then you check the balance, and it barely moved. Not a little less than you hoped. Barely moved. So your brain does what it always does now. It goes quiet. Then it goes mean. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get ahead? How am I still here? But listen, if your balance never seems to go down, that isn't proof you're bad with money. It's proof you're interacting with a system designed to feel manageable while keeping you trapped. The minimum payment is not a plan. It's a permission slip. Let me describe someone. Not a finance disaster, not a reckless spender, a normal person. They work full-time. They pay their bills. They're not buying yachts. They're buying groceries, gas, a kid's birthday gift, a new tire, a couple takeout meals when they're exhausted. They carry about $6,800 on one card. They're not ignoring it. They're paying every month. Their statement says minimum payment $204. So they pay $250, sometimes $300. And for a minute, it feels like progress. Then the next statement hits, and the balance is still basically there. Not because they didn't pay, because the payment is being eaten alive by interest first, fees sometimes, then whatever is left barely touches principal. So they keep paying month after month, and the debt becomes a background noise, a subscription, a quiet leak, until something small happens, a $400 surprise, and the leak turns into a flood. This is the trap. You're paying, but you're not escaping. Here's the contradiction that makes people spiral. You're behaving responsibly. You're making payments. You're not ignoring the problem. And yet, the outcome looks like irresponsibility. The balance won't die. So you try harder. You pay more when you can. You promise yourself next month will be cleaner. But next month arrives carrying another surprise. And your card, your backup plan, becomes your lifestyle's shock absorber. That's not a personal failure. That's a structural setup. If a product keeps you stuck when you use it correctly, the product is working as designed. Here's what most people don't understand. The minimum payment is not calculated to get you out of debt quickly. It is calculated to keep you current, to keep the account alive, to keep the relationship going, to keep the interest flowing. And it's not even a secret. Your statements are required to warn you. In fact, U.S. rules require credit card issuers to include repayment disclosures, including minimum payment warnings and payoff comparisons, like what it would take to pay the balance in about 36 months, and how much interest you could save versus making minimum payments. Read that again. The system literally prints a warning on the bill, because the minimum is not designed for freedom. It's designed for continuity. And continuity is profitable. So when you pay the minimum, what are you really doing? You are paying the monthly fee for time, not time you enjoy, time you owe. Minimum payment isn't the price of the debt. It's the price of not panicking yet.
Now, here's the 2026 update. Interest is not gentle right now. The Federal Reserve data series on Fred shows the commercial bank interest rate on credit card plans at 20.97% November 2025, updated Jan 8, 2026. So if you're revolving a balance, you're not a little behind. You're interacting with a rate that can behave like a gravity field. It doesn't just slow progress, it pulls you back. At 21%, your payment has to be big enough to do two jobs at once: pay the interest that accrues, then reduce the balance. If your payment only does job number one, you feel like you're paying, but you're not moving. And that feeling is accurate. At 20% plus interest, small payments don't equal progress. They equal survival. Here's why this trap catches normal, responsible people. Because the minimum payment is emotionally engineered. It's low enough to feel doable. It's presented as a safe option. It reduces immediate stress. And your brain loves immediate stress relief, especially when life is loud, especially when you're tired. So you pay the minimum. You get to tell yourself, I'm handling it. And for that moment, you are. But that moment has a cost. It converts a short-term problem into a long-term tax on your future. And the system knows you'll choose relief, not because you're weak, because you're human. The credit card trap isn't just math, it's emotional timing. Now zoom out. Why does this feel like it's hitting everyone? Because more people are using credit cards as emergency savings, and the data supports the thin margin reality. The Federal Reserve's report on household economic well-being says that in 2024, 63% of adults would cover a hypothetical $400 emergency using cash or its equivalent. That means a very large minority would not. So what happens when you don't have margin? A tire problem becomes a card swipe. A medical copay becomes a card swipe. We need groceries before payday becomes a card swipe. And revolving balances at 20% plus interest isn't a bridge, it's a treadmill. If you don't have margin, the card becomes the margin, and the margin charges you interest. Let's keep this brutally simple. If you carry $7,000 at around 20.97% APR, the balance generates meaningful interest over the year. If your payment is small, the interest eats first. So you get this monthly illusion. You pay $250. You feel responsible. The balance falls. A little. Then interest refills the hole. And you're back where you started. This is why the minimum payment is a lie, because it implies emotionally, do this and you are moving towards zero. But what it actually means is, do this and you are staying eligible to keep paying. The minimum payment is a payment that preserves the debt, not a payment that destroys it. Now here's something that tells you just how intense this has gotten. In January 2026, there's renewed national attention on credit card rates because President Donald Trump floated the idea of a 10% cap on credit card interest for a year, triggering pushback from major banks and debate about access to credit. Whether you like that policy or hate it is not the point. The point is this: when a country starts seriously talking about capping credit card rates, it's a signal. It means enough people feel crushed by interest that the issue broke into the loud part of the conversation. And it gets even more real. A company called Built launched credit cards advertising 10% APR for the first year in response to the cap discussion. Then rates rise substantially after the promotional period. So even the good news version shows the pattern. Short-term relief, followed by the normal system returning. The rate cap debate proves one thing. People aren't struggling because they're careless. They're struggling because interest is heavy.
Now, let's do the stress test. Imagine your life runs normally for 6 months. Then one thing happens. Not a catastrophe, just a normal interruption. Hours cut, a layoff scare, a medical bill, a car repair, a family emergency flight. If you have margin, it's annoying. If you don't have margin, you swipe. And when you swipe, you're not just borrowing money, you're signing up for interest. At rates around 20% plus, the interest isn't a DAL, it's the business model. So the trap snaps shut like this. You swipe to solve a short-term problem. The problem ends. The balance remains, and now the balance creates new problems every month. This is why it feels like you can't breathe, because the past keeps sending bills into the future. Here's the reframe that changes everything. You are not bad with money. You are dealing with a system where the default option is designed to keep you paying for a long time. So the question is not, how do I be perfect? The question is, how do I build a system that beats the minimum payment system? Because the only way out of a trap is to stop playing by the trap's rules. Minimum payment is the rule of the trap. Your plan must be a different rule. Now we build the exit, not with hustle talk, with design. Step 1, choose your exit card. If you have multiple cards, don't try to attack all of them emotionally at once. That's how people burn out. Pick one target card, the one with the highest rate usually, or the one that creates the most stress. Pay minimums on the others, aim intensity at one. You don't win by trying harder. You win by focusing harder. Step 2, replace minimum payment with minimum plus fixed extra. This is the simplest upgrade in personal finance. Stop paying what the statement suggests. Pay what you decide. Take your minimum payment, then add a fixed extra amount, something you can repeat monthly without heroics. $50, $100, $200. Not once, every month. Because the fixed extra does something the minimum doesn't. It hits principal consistently, and principal is the enemy. Interest wants you to be inconsistent. Your weapon is consistency.
Remember those required disclosures? The system often frames a comparison around paying off balances in about 36 months versus paying minimums, and it requires issuers to disclose minimum payment warnings and payoff estimates. So steal that framing. Ask one clean question. What monthly payment gets me out in roughly 3 years? That question turns the debt from forever into a project. Even if you can't hit the full 3-year payment immediately, it gives you a direction, and direction beats guilt. A date on the calendar is more powerful than motivation. Step 4, the no new charges rule. Temporary, not forever. This is where people get defensive, so listen carefully. This is not about shame. This is about physics. If you're paying down a balance while still charging on the same card, you're fighting yourself. So set a rule for a season. One card becomes the paydown card. No swipes. If you must use a card for life reasons, pick one spending card and commit to paying it in full. Even better, use a debit/checking-based system for the season. Not because credit cards are evil, because the trap works when the balance keeps refilling. You can't drain a bathtub if the faucet is still on. Step 5, build a micro buffer so the card stops being your emergency fund. Remember the $400 stress point? If a surprise becomes a swipe, the balance regrows. So build a buffer that's boring but powerful. A starter emergency fund. Not 6 months. Start with one annoying surprise. Then 2. This is the quiet move that breaks the cycle. Because the card is most dangerous when it becomes your shock absorber. And the data says many adults are living close to that line. Debt payoff is easier when emergencies stop becoming debt. Step 6, automate your exit. Because your life is tired. Most people fail at debt payoff for one reason. They rely on monthly willpower.
Willpower is unreliable when you're exhausted. So automate. Auto-pay minimums across all cards. Auto-pay your fixed extra towards the exit card. Set it the day after payday, if possible. Make the plan happen while your brain is busy living. If your plan requires perfect discipline, it isn't a plan. It's a fantasy. Here's why this latter works. Because it attacks both forces. The system force, interest. At 20% plus average rates, the balance grows unless you hit principal consistently. So minimum plus fixed extra changes the math. The psychology force, relief seeking. The minimum payment sells you relief. Your plan must sell you something better. Progress you can feel. A number that drops every month. A finish line. A date. That's what keeps you going. Not shame, not hustle. Evidence. Progress is the antidote to hopelessness. Now, let's call the minimum payment what it really is. It's a low monthly number that keeps you calm. It keeps you participating. It keeps you current. It keeps the relationship profitable. And again, this isn't conspiracy, it's compliance. The statements are built to disclose repayment information in standardized ways, including minimum payment warnings and payoff comparisons. So the lie isn't that the number is fake. The lie is what your brain thinks it means. Your brain hears minimum and thinks minimum to solve, but it's actually minimum to continue. Minimum payment is not the path out. It's the path that keeps the door closed. Let's end with the truth that protects your self-respect. The enemy is not you. The enemy is a high-interest environment, plus a low-margin life, plus a payment option designed for continuity. That combination traps good people, hard-working people, normal families. And if you're inside it, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you're in a system that requires a different strategy than be responsible. Because you already are responsible. Now you need to be strategic. Responsibility keeps you current. Strategy sets you free. So here's your new rule. Stop paying what the system suggests. Start paying what your exit requires. The minimum payment is a lie, not because it's illegal, but because it sells hope while extending the timeline. And you don't need more hope. You need a plan with leverage. Pick the exit card. Minimum plus fixed extra. No new charges for a season. Micro buffer. Automate. Repeat. That's how you stop renting your debt. That's how you get your future back. If this made something click, subscribe, because the goal here isn't guilt. The goal is margin. The goal is optionality. The goal is breathing room again. You don't need a perfect life to escape debt. You need a system that survives real life.